So getting started. What is a reading ladder? A series or set of books that are related in some way and demonstrate a gradual development from simple to more complex. How do reading ladders work? They provide scaffolding to help readers find a book just like the one just finished. And how do you get started? Basically, you survey the kids. When you start with that reading ladder for your series or set of books that are related in some way, it's almost like a text set. It could all be by one author, a specific series, or you could be trying to find maybe a student likes fractured fairy tales. And so you start them off with something fairly simple, Just Ella by Margaret Peterson Haddix. And then you move to Ella Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine, and you move into Fairest, a couple of other books by Gail Carson Levine. Then you move over to Wendy Mass and do a couple of the fairy tales where they tell two parts of the story. I think there's a Sleeping Beauty one, and there's a Beauty and the Beast one, and I think Rapunzel. And then the student may decide after that, that they want other things. So you could move into Wendy Mass's 11 birthdays and 12, or I think it's finally, and then 13 gifts, and just kind of go from there to be able to get them started and kind of hooked. Also, how can I make students more independent? Readers need to have many successful experiences with books before they're ready to be independent. We take things away when things are hard for students. Sometimes, like with Accelerated Reader, we will have them read less books or less points, which I definitely agree with the less points, but I don't think if you're doing a certain number of books, your students should be reading more books, just as many books as the other students, because of course practice does make perfect, but they do need a lot of successful experiences with those books. If you start a 7th grader out, maybe he likes to hunt, he likes to fish, he likes to do survival things, but he's not just the best reader. You might back up and go to Shiloh by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor, and then try to move him into Gary Paulson's Hatchet, which is a fairly easy read, and then maybe move on to Will Hobbs or another author that does similar things, but I wouldn't start with the larger books worth more points at the beginning, just because they're going to need to have that successful experience first before they're ready to go into Where the Red Fern Grows. How many steps should there be in a ladder? Well, it depends on the student and where they want to go, or where we want to go with them. Some reading ladders aren't very many steps, and then others have a fairly far way to go to be able to catch up. So it depends on the student. The reading ladder, here are a few suggestions. If you'll pick a bottom rung or two, something that's accessible for the class or your student in particular, and then go up to the top of your ladder, pick a top rung, and then you fill in your subsequent rungs along the way. So you want to start with the bottom. You want to know what book or what reading levels you're starting with. You want to look at what that top is going to be, what the goal is or the end is in mind. And then you can fill in those subsequent rungs with different materials based on how far you're needing to go. Start small initially. Model as you go for your students. Remember those genres, student interests, and reading levels as you go, and include your student input on developing those reading ladders. If you're working with a whole class, each one could be individualized. If you're working with just a couple of specific students, then obviously you've got less ladders that you need to fill in. Some ideas for reading ladders. Students want to know that when they finish a book, that there's something else out there that's similar. So for younger students through middle school, I would recommend Bookopolis, and then for your junior high and high school, Goodreads. If you've not been to, most of you are probably familiar with Goodreads, but I don't know if everyone is familiar with Bookopolis, so I'll just pull it open real fast. It's a kid-safe place for students to be able to kind of match up um, the books that they're looking for, and then it helps the students kind of keep track of what did they just read, and then it helps them find what to read next. So you can go through, there's information about Bookopolis, what it is, how to explore it. You can create your own bookshelf. They can share it with their friends. That way they can see what others are doing. It's almost like a social media site, but it's protected. The students do need to log in and sign up, and it is free though. It looks kind of juvenile. That's why I don't recommend it. It does go up through 8th grade, I believe, but it looks a little juvenile. So I would stick with lower elementary up through middle school, maybe 6th, 7th grade. As far as Goodreads goes, it looks quite a bit more sophisticated. It is not as protected, I guess, as Bookopolis is. So you've got to make sure, with your students that you are helping them navigate being good digital citizens, using good etiquette online, and know that with Goodreads it's an adult level books as well, so you might run into things. This site, you do have to be at least 13 years or older to sign up. So that's why I would definitely recommend it junior high and high school. But it really is a great place for students. Bookopolis does the same thing for students to be able to write reviews, knowing that other people are going to see them. It will give them an outlet. Once they finish reading, they can write those reviews, but it also helps them pair books that what they've just read into other books as well. So those would be two ideas that I would recommend for helping you to build those reading ladders.